So, hello, welcome. Hi, everyone. This is the last edition for this year for Art, Design, and Conversations, and we have a very special guest here today. So, before I introduce our guest, let me give a little introduction to people who have never heard this show or never heard about what ADC is. So, ADC is a show, Art, Design, Conversation, which is a show that we produce here at Beats. My name is Sandeep. I'm the managing director for Beat Studio. It's based out of Bhubaneswar in Orissa. It's a design studio that makes elegant, ethnically inspired, and environmentally friendly products. We're a craft studio, and we have a firm belief in the power of art and design to make people's lives better. So, our vision is to inspire lives with inspiring design from the state of Orissa, where we come from, which has a vast creative reservoir in crafts and arts. So why ADC? So the reason we started off the series was to kind of explore the methodologies and motivations that underlie indigenous craftsmanship. And that was a bit of a rabbit hole, because as we went along, we discovered there's a lot more than just understanding craftsmanship. It is an exploration of how craft items intersect in our daily existence, our environment, and particularly within the framework of contemporary design ideologies and the escalating emphasis on sustainability. This series is a series where we talk to accomplished professionals spanning the diverse realms of art and design. We seek to unravel the ecological and communal consequences associated with mass manufactured goods and underscore the importance and pertinence of creativity and native artisanal traditions and spotlight the transformative role of such mediums. So that's us. You might have seen a few of the products flash on your screen about what we do. And do visit us at studiobeat.com to know more about it. But without further ado, let me introduce you to our guest who's joining us live from New York. And Siri Devi Khandavilli, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Sandeep. Thank you for having me here. And I've been observing what Beat Studio is doing. So, kudos to you guys, because I think in India, we are so culturally rich, like diverse craftsmanship. We've taken it for granted is what I feel, because we see it everywhere, right? And when it comes out of India and we see it in a clear space is when we really understand the value. In fact, yesterday I was talking to my kids about, how the world has borrowed from us, right? World over, like when you think of like even paisley designs and, design iconography and colors and materials, like the world has taken it, and our own designers, it's nice. You've created a space where it's highlighted, and you're also trying to understand it historically as well as in contemporary different things. So kudos to you guys. So
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. No, that's brilliant. Thank you. And we'll explore more on that, because your background is so interesting, and it encompasses both the fields of art and craft, and we'll talk more about this. But let me start off by giving the people a little formal bio. A formal bio is just to kind of get people to understand the kind of diverse and rich background you come from. So Siri's background is very interesting. She hails from a family of very accomplished artists. Her father is the renowned Kannada film director N. Lakshminarayanan. She began attending art classes at the age of 3 in Karnataka Chitrakala Parishad. She studied Mysore traditional painting under the tutelage of her aunt, Sushila Devi. She has a BFA and an MFA, an intermediate from Arizona State University. And as if that was not enough, she has a second MFA in sculpture from Karnataka Chitrakala Parishad and has trained under a temple sculptor by the name of Pandian from Kumbakonam. She has had numerous solo and art shows across the world. I'm just going to name a few because there's quite a lot. The Albertina Museum in 2020, the Durham University, UK in 2018, the Scottsdale Museum of Contemporary Art in 2016, Art Basel in Miami, and of course the India Art Fair. So she has a beautiful website, which you guys, I must recommend, should visit. I think it's still under construction, but there's quite a bit of this in there. But the interesting thing is she's right now shuttling between New York and Delhi. She has quite a bit of work in both places. And Her extensive and broad education has shaped her into a visual artist at ease with various media and forms of artistic expression. This is a theme we'll explore a little bit more in this interview. So, welcome once again, Siri. And I'm just going to start off by asking the most obvious question. At the age of 3, and what a beautiful journey you've had since then. So, what kicked this all off? I mean, were you like Mozart and people just saw that how good you were and they just said, let's start her off at 3? Is that what happened?
No, I think my family, like everybody made art. It's a way of life. My aunt, I have three, I had my father's great aunt. We were kind of in a joint family in the same building. So my 3 aunts were all artists, made like craft-based art, because I want to talk about it, right? On craft, women, and art, right? So my aunt all made art, and my grandmother was an artist, as in she held theater addas in our house, and various artists came in and out of our house when I was growing up. Our house was called Amor, which means love.
Okay. Yeah.
And I for me, even now, I crave that space, like that space of like having an open door where creative people are coming in and out and having conversations. And this was a house I grew up in. My father was a filmmaker. And I think it's probably like, it's just what we did. My father was like, oh, there's this Chitrakala person. So he took me and somehow convinced them that you can take this baby, because I also used to sit with people who were doing masters back then. So like when I did my second master's from Chitrakala Parishad, one of the professors was classmate when I was a baby, so that was a running joke. He was like, she was my classmate, So they just took me to CKP and I used to hang out there and make art. And one more thing I want to add here is, because I'm going to start making these night skies, because one thing I remember from that time is they used to make me paint all these like beautiful pictures, and I would paint it, and then I would paint black and make night skies of all my paintings from childhood. So I actually don't have any other paintings but night skies. So I'm going to make a series, and people will what's the connection? But maybe it's my return back to my childhood. But
at the young age of 3, I mean, it must have been something that you were inclined to, and your dad must have seen some strains of it that they must have felt that, okay, this is a place that you should start getting into. Did you kind of take to it like a duck to water, or was it like a little bit of a an uphill climb or anything of the sort, or you just felt at home, just at ease?
I mean, it's just, I drew everywhere on the walls, like in the house.
So there were signs.
They stopped me, so they had to take me and like give it a outlet, I guess. I think the uphill battle was I never won any awards as a kid. But they thought I was going to make these like skillful paintings, and I'd become one of those like, kids who would be winning like Camden Award or whatever. But like I said, I would paint and do whatever, the road, the mountain, and then there was always the night sky, So I was pretty stubborn even back then, and I didn't listen to people. So I've enjoyed that. I still have such good memories of that, because after my father passed away, I have a huge gap in memory. Right? Actually, my memory is not very good, right? But somehow, just those years of going, the early CKP years, right, is something I really remember. Like I remember
very formative in your, in your later years. I think you remember. I mean, just like the night sky example that you just gave. So it's like vivid memories from those days.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and then from there on, you did your BFA and MFA.
So then my father passed away. My father's side of the family was the artistic side. And my father passed away. My mom kind of cut me off art, because my mom didn't want me to become an artist, because she felt it's a life of struggle. There won't be money. There won't be, she was very worried about it. So she, got me away from it. And then I felt sick, because when I had to apply for my Bachelor of Fine Arts, my mom was like, no, you cannot do this. And I actually got fever for 103 years
Wow.
because I was
Yeah.
so upset that I can't be an artist. And then
Mhm.
my uncle, who was a doctor, came and said, like, just let her, she's going to
Mm.
die if she won't be an artist, So
Wow.
it was like,
Yeah.
I had to convince them. And I started with micro traditional painting classes. Actually, it was an apprenticeship that my aunt used to teach. My aunt,
Right.
Devi, was a Mysore traditional painter. She
Yeah.
learned under Subramanya Raju, who was a Mysore palace painter.
Right.
So, and then that's how it started. I think my love, because um, there were a lot of problems at home at that time. Like my mom was
Right.
not well. I had no dad. I have no siblings. Right, a lot of issues happening, and the only thing that kept me sane and happy was the details, decorative lines of my traditional painting, like those intricate lines, and because craft has that thing, right, where you focus, and it's meditative, and so for me, that's another thing became like I was, for me those lines, the curved lines, they kept me sane and happy,
And the most I've found, like in some of the interviews I've done when I've had the chance to talk to artists who've come from very rich backgrounds and culture, but they've gone through a school, an art school, and it's been a substantive change for them because then you're formally learning art history, you're formally learning about, your different pedagogies that are associated with art. Some take to it, they feel a lot of comfort because now they feel there's a structure to it. Some get really shocked for the first couple of years. What is all this? Am I on doing this right? Am I good enough? Did you have any of those trials or tribulations when you started getting to learn about that, or was that quite a natural step forward?
So for me, like I said, art was a way of being alive.
Yeah.
I don't say this lightly because it was not like a career choice. It was not
Right.
it's just me, like even now, like I keep telling I'm a professional, unprofessional artist because I'm not, it's not a profession for me. It's a lifestyle. It's a life, it's who I am, right? I would make art regardless of what anything is, because that is a way of being alive for me. I cannot imagine, not doing it, right?
Yeah.
Because like I said, I've gone through, like, people don't realize, like, sometimes people see from far and they're like, oh, everything must have been perfect. No, it wasn't, right? My mom was really ill, and during those times, and I have no siblings, like I said, I have nobody around, right? The only thing I had was art, right? Even now when I think, right, even now I think I'm unable to shake off the love for my traditional painting because I had a significant setback because of my love for craft. Period. Right? My love for the shading and the colors, my traditional colors and the curves and the craftsmanship.
So tell me, why setbacks? What kind of setbacks?
So I went to America and I did my interdisciplinary art, and I studied performance art. I studied, it was all about like conceptual art, and we were like, looking at Tracy and these kind of like what we thought was like what people thought were cutting edge art, I guess. I would say that's what people thought, okay? Because I don't believe in anything like that. I feel like you cannot find things like that, So I studied that for my bachelor's and master's. Because my bachelor's, I started off wanting to do video art because of my father, right? I love cinema. And I thought I'll make that. I was also assistant director for a Kannada film in between. So I started off thinking I'll be a video artist. I made a ton of video artwork. Then I also studied performance art and all these, like, what was cutting edge back then. I would learn, like, okay, there's movement captured and then it was cast somewhere, like using computers, which was a big, at that point. I studied that, but I started feeling there was something lacking because my love for art started with actually making it with my hand, making with these details, making was craft and color, right? And I felt empty. So I couldn't, I tried to. In fact, even my early video art has, I made some paintings which have like this micro traditional touch to it. Then I took video of that, photos of that, and used it as my 3D models skin. You make 3D models, and I use the painting as the skin of the models, and I made some videos. So I was still trying to understand how all these things intersect. There was a period when I felt so out of place because my concerns were so different than my classmates. I felt because everybody making about consumerism. And I was like, shit, how come I don't think about it so much? Then I started thinking about that for a bit. I had so much of a love of money because, at that point, that's what everybody, all my classmates. I did a bunch on consumerism and things like that. But this thing, it's like something internal that keeps beating. That is about the early influences or the early start off with my aunt. That was always there. So then I came back to India and I wanted to learn. So then, because I'm also a very academic person, if I want to learn something, I want to make cinema, I'm going to go study cinema and then make it. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'll just try. I like learning.
Like getting in the nuts and bolts into the depth.
Then I tried to find a teacher who would. The thing about so it is difficult, by the way, to convince as a woman certain parts to, because in Karnataka there's this whole set of people who make temple sculptures, right? And acharis, and that's what they are called.
Right.
I couldn't get people to take me seriously enough to teach me, or talk to me about it. So then somehow I found one person, in Kumbakonam. I went for some time and then hung out there, learned a little bit. I must say that is what then I felt a little bit more clearer about what I wanted to do, because I realized I like craft. I like I'm not just saying this because it shows in my practice, because I feel funny.
Yeah, of course.
Craft centered, and I'm talking scratch comes back.
No, but it shows, and I think that's one of the things that struck me when I was reading all your interviews and your work and everything. And I think the temple sculptor thing, I know I'm cutting you off in the middle of the story, but that sounded so fascinating. It felt like somebody's trying to get back to the roots, because I think it makes sense with the whole setback thing, because it's so ingrained in your work, the effect and the essence of craft. I guess at that point of time, you felt that you wanted to go back and just connect back to something so real as working with a temple sculptor, right?
Yeah, it was. But anyway, after that, so it was a difficult thing because, like I said, it was difficult to go to these places, difficult to let people teach me, because they just want to not be bothered about somebody coming and sitting, and so it was hard. Then thankfully Pandian was kind enough to take me under his wing and give me some time. That was good. And then I tried to read books and look at drawings. Then I went and collected drawings that they sell in temples in South India, in Tamil Nadu. They sell these books with drawings of temple sculpture. Right?
Yep.
They're trying to show you what is the proportions and all that kind of stuff. But then I felt a need to do masters in sculpture, because I felt my skill was not good enough and I wanted to hone my sculpture skill. Right? I wanted to understand sculpture in a formal way. So that's how the second master started. By then, actually, I was already a practicing artist. I had a gallery representation in America. I didn't really. That's what I mean by I'm not a career artist.
So the setbacks that you referred to were just personal setbacks in terms of how you were getting.
So let me get.
What did you?
So I showed in America. So I started making these sculptures which look like Indian sculptures, right? Bronze sculpture. In Chola tradition and stuff. But I got a gallerist in America, Lisa Setti, and she represented me, and she still represents me. He was very happy with it. In fact, everybody received it well, and it's sold to museums and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But when I tried to come back to India, like people, galleries, told me on my face that this looks like this could be bought off the street, right? They said, then why is this like, this is looking like I can get it in like Janpat,
Right.
So why will I show this and sell this for this amount? But anyway, so that was a problem. People outright criticized this was the whole thing, that it looks like an Indian tchotchke, right? Here is where my problem was. So I have studied in America, right? I studied the most cutting edge. It was not even painting or sculpture. I was not studying even a mainstream thing. I studied interdisciplinary art, right? Which, if I had just stuck to that and came back to India, I would have been more famous and more successful by now than what I tried to do, right? Yeah. What I tried to do was get back to my roots. And another reason I didn't break, I was also advised by people, if this is your art, then why are you not breaking up the sculpture? Like, why are you keeping the traditional form? Why are you keeping it integrated? Like, not like cutting it and adding a block of cube underneath, whatever, right? In a sculpture. I was like, I was also, by the way, I was also naive. I was like, but I'm upset that if we didn't have the British rule, right? Or if we didn't have this kind of like other influences come in, what kind of art would we have been making?
Absolutely.
Right? So I was like, I'm not going to break these forms. So I stuck to it. Like I made a bunch of series. There was a series called Not in My Name, which was reacting to somebody's, there were heads being cut off in the name of religion and stuff like that. So I made a series of that. Again, nobody took notice because I'm keeping the craft complete. There was no disintegrate. Like I was not like it's not like a reconstructed samosa. If you go to a fancy Indian restaurant, it's like a fusion restaurant, and they're like, "Oh, here is samosa, but it's deconstructed." No, mine was traditional. It was like really good samosa, but in the samosa form. I think there is post-colonial shame. I think there's post-colonial shame about this kind of work because I felt it. When I say that, this is what I'm saying, because I met at least 10 galleries. They all had the same opinion that like this looks like Janpat thing, like this looks like.
But this is the reaction you faced in India, not when you were showing it outside.
Yeah, not outside, because
was it
there's a problem there too.
Was it
exoticizing problem there. Okay, so it's very hard. But the thing is, this is who I am, right? These were my real thoughts, and I was sticking to it, right? Okay, like when you sell abroad and they're very excited, you're like, are you excited because you think like this is what Indians do, right? But then. That's what at that point, I was very internally focused. I mean, I'm always internally, but it's my own journey alone, right? At the end of the day, it's me being an artist. Honestly, art is not a field you should choose if you want to be famous or rich or anything, because you don't know how people are going to react. I'm here for the love, right? It's like falling in love with a man and hoping that, hopefully you'll make money, but if you may not, but it's like, I'm sticking to it for the right reasons, right? So I made those art. It got good. Like they were sold out in America. Again, it's problematic, but still, it gave me money to make more art, right? In a very honest way, I wanted to make more art. So
how did this experience of feeling exoticized in the West, while in the East, where you're from India, where you're from, people felt that this was just a cheap knockoff. Like for you, which is an expression of yourself, it must have been like, what did you learn from this experience? How did it influence your future work? Like, what did you take from there?
It didn't influence my future work because, like I said, I'm pretty internally focused in my art journey. Like in the sense, like, I listen to people, but I don't like change me based on like what people are saying, because like I said, I come from a family of artists. Like my cousin brother is a Bharatanatyam dancer. My other cousin brother is the first heavy metal rock group in India. Like nobody, no, like my dad didn't make changes because of critics. You know, nobody does that in my family. I mean, I mean it. You know, it's a kind of we understand we are here because we love it. Right? I love my art, and when I was making it, I was like, but you know, I tried to tell them that we are having post-colonial shame, right? Because we had external influences, like we had, I think it was probably Clement Greenberg who came and said, like, you know, India needs to make art that is exportable or something like that, you know. So this idea of like universality in art, that we all make contemporary art. Right. Modern art, or like what people think is like, oh, it should look a certain way. Right? If it's making, like, why are you making art that people made 2,000 years back? You know, that's not the question. Like, what? My question was like, why did you change? You know. This was a huge setback for me. In fact, if I didn't do this, and I continued with my US education, what I learned about installation. You know,
you'd be in a much safer space.
Oh, you'd be in a much safer space. I would have top 10, right? But no, like I was stubborn and I wanted to explore this. Also, there was a sense of rebellion also. Like, so there are many overlaps when an artist makes an artwork. Like for me, it's not, like for example, there can be subversive commentary. I also come from a very traditional background. So when my father passed away, we moved places, and I was in this super conservative place
environment.
You know, I had an arranged marriage early on in life, and where my mom would say like, "Don't laugh so loudly," because women don't laugh loudly. So then I made a series called Selfie Queens. This was like my rebellion, right? Within the conservative framework, like, these were women rebellious. You know, friendship.
I saw all the Selfie Queens works, by the way. They're just amazing, by the way. I was going to ask you a question on Selfie Queens, but they're really cool. Yeah, please go ahead. Tell me more about it.
This is also about rebellion. Again, lost because of its form. Because the subversion was lost, the humor was lost, because people, and I also realized so many Indian people from like similar backgrounds don't even know about Indian iconography. So I was like, sure, like it was lost, you know, completely lost. But anyways, I was okay with it because I was like, I just want to make art the way I want to make it. As long as I'm getting to do it, I don't care. Right? But there were periods of me feeling sad. Like, I'm like, oh, like, it's like, you know, it's like you're a stand-up comedian and you crack a joke and nobody laughs. And you're like, oh, you didn't get it. So there were periods and I was like, oh, you're not getting what I'm trying to do. Like, why am I not breaking the form? Right? It's easily, if I poured cement on it or if I poured some other stuff, right? Somehow it would have been a cooler sculpture. Right? But I didn't do it. It's not because I can't do it or I'm not imaginative enough to break a sculpture, right? Sculptural form. I was very adamant about keeping the form, right? Because I wanted
as it is,
So this was about like, you know, also about like criticism from the inside. You know, there were all these like subversive things that I was trying to talk about, like where you stay within a traditional framework, but you might be commenting on it, right? Those kind of things that never came about, like that never came out, because nobody wanted to show me in India. Thankfully, like one gallery took pity on me and took, you know, I think she's very sweet that she shows me. But then my mom passed away. The reason I say this is my work changed when my mom passed away. Right? The transition happened. I was making Selfie Queens and things like that. Then I moved to America, and then I had a period of silence, you know, where I was just searching and I was trying to figure out this new process that I was obsessed with. You know, I'm also obsessed with mirrors, as a medium, and a material and what it is as a metaphor, many things,
Yeah.
I'm completely obsessed with it. I wanted to get it on a canvas. So it took me like 3-4 years to figure out how to do it. Right? When I just didn't show, and people thought maybe she gave up making art. We got rid of this crafty woman. But so I was like trying to figure out. It took me time to figure it out, right? The new paintings, I don't know if you've had a chance to see the paintings, they're all on canvas. It's a cultural process, also inspired by craft, right? Because
I mean, I've seen your the Rorschach inkblot work, which I think was in Art Centrics when I was there. I've seen that piece of work. But what I find it so fascinating is, given where the kind of understanding of craft, your training in interdisciplinary work, your background with so many people having done so many things in culture, like there's a fluidity in the mediums that you work on, right? There's so many different mediums that you work on, and you just shift from one to the other. I mean, is it a natural evolution, or is it a process where you decide that this particular subject requires this particular medium? This is how I want to express myself. Like if I'm doing selfie queens, I take that, the tactility of displaying it in little bronze sculptures, and then just turning it around into the expression that you want to give. And that's why bronze is a good way of showing it. Where you're doing something with your work with the Rorschach experiment, where you want to look at the individual in a different way. You're doing it. So how do you take those calls? I mean, how do you fit the subject in the medium? Is that how you approach it, or is it just, this is what I'm working on right now, and that's what all my stories are going to get showed up on? Is that how it works?
Okay. So even though sometimes the artworks get shown haphazardly, like for example, I'll be working on something, but something else is like, I also believe in play.
Right.
Okay. Huge believer in play as art, because I feel like I play a lot with materials and mediums. In fact, last Mumbai Art Fair, they showed 2 works, which was just in my studio, and they just wanted to show it. But for me, it was just play. It was not even a work, because I feel the best things come out when you're not trying hard,
Okay.
Because you should just play is what I believe in. Like, you should just not think about who is going to see it, or how is it going to show, will it sell, none of these ideas, right? It's more like, like today, for example, like I said, like I made roti work, right? Or I made papad. I made this work, which looked like papad, For example, if I'm making roti, and I'm thinking, I'm also I also cook a lot, right? So it comes, and then I just make it to see what happens, right? Because I believe in it. And I believe, for example, I made this series of works which was inspired by vegetable cutting boards, right? Because I was every day I was looking at, I would cut vegetables and I would look at these marks on the cutting board. And then one of my close friends won the national award for woodcut.
Okay.
At the same time. So, I was like, wow, this is also like a woodcut, Then I thought I should make a print of it. Then I thought, who is the best woodcut artist, right? Or who is the good engraver, right? Then I was like, oh, it's Dürer. Then I was like, looked at Dürer's line. I tried to show the same skills in my woodcut. And then I took the lines of Dürer, melded with my so traditional Vyali form. And then I was like, I looked at the wood pieces and I was like, oh, I think I should put metal into it, like a
bronze.
Like a ceiling. So how does this work? I don't know. Like I said, it's the act of play, right?
Yeah.
Did I know? I didn't plan, first I will make 2 pieces and I'll see. And then, I can't plan like that. It's more like an evolution of a work, organically, naturally. And I don't stop it. If it's changing, I don't stop it because I'm not worried. In fact, the newest thing in America is you just have to make one kind of art, but make hundreds of those.
Yeah.
Like make the same painting like 100 times, right? So I'm not like that. Like if I don't feel like doing that, I'm not going to do it. If I feel like doing, and maybe I'm also a little ADHD person, right? Like I kind of like having many things going on, right? I like I mean, people have different personalities, and I feel like sometimes controlling it and just for a public facade or trying to show like, oh, I only make this kind of art. I don't believe in it. I'm like,
yeah, I mean, it's such a, yeah, I mean, like your work is such a step. I mean, it's just the way you're describing your process of inspiration, serendipity, working with different materials. It's not something that you hear that often when you're talking to people, because like most of the artists we get to talk to or designers we get to talk to, they work towards a certain language. And when they get the elements of the language, they just stick to it for years. They're like, I want to just mix and match these elements for as long as possible, in as many formats as possible, and possibly in the same medium, not even moving away from the medium. So there's a fluidity in which you worked, which is quite refreshing, because everybody's so afraid when they want to switch off. Like I've seen artists who've given exhibitions in a completely different language from what they've used to, and they're so scared in those exhibitions. You can see, will people be okay with it? Will the people not be okay with it? This is a new me, and your art is an expression of your own identity. So all of that comes in. So I was really curious to see that how you're able to switch subject to subject, medium to medium. And I guess plays is the word that comes to my mind. Like you just like playing with all these things and looking at what comes out of it, and there's this fun element to it, and there's this inspiration to it, and that's probably what comes to it. I mean, that's the impression I'm getting.
So this again, right? This might also be another setback in me, right? So you're talking about setbacks, right? Like for example, I was sticking to the craft.
Yes.
A lot of people refused. It didn't mean I changed for them. I did. Right? This is another aspect of me, right? I'm planning a solo show now. Right? I'm like, people are like, oh, come up with like one theme and like show it. But I'm like, I'm one person. If I am fluid and I'm going through like these different things, right? And I'm trying to be, what is art about? What is an artist's life about? It's about being an authentic self, right? If you really think like, if I'm being authentic to myself, right? Then why should I curtail these things just to perform that I can make 200 such paintings, I can. It's not a big deal. Of course I can do it. But there's a reason. I also feel like it's very important to own up one's own real self, right? Like, fine, my solo show will get the criticism. Looks like Patani, one is one kind. Somebody will come and say this, right? Somebody will economic, a person who cannot benefit from it economically.
No, I think that there is a commercial angle to it, because of which I think it's in the back of the mind of artists when they're displaying, and they want that recall from buyers, they want that recall from the market, and this is her work, this is his work. And I think that kind of influences the behavior in terms of what you're trying to do. But this untethered, unfettered approach towards artistic expression gets harder with that kind of commercial, which I find quite, I mean, it must have crossed your mind at some point, or it never does, that there are commercial implications.
No, it does. These days it does, because I'm using more and more expensive materials. So it does stress me out, because whether you like it or not, like metal is expensive. Like now I'm bringing a sculpture which is 200 kg of bronze, right? For one sculpture, right? So I'm like, it costs a lot of money to make, and then it costs a lot of money to transport. And let's say I want to show it in America, it costs a lot of money to import. So I do worry about that, because unfortunately these are like, I keep joking about it.
Practicalities.
Like, a garden, Unfortunately, these days even gardening costs money. I'm like, who wants to? Gardening is a very natural thing, Unfortunately, that's the same thing I feel about art. I don't want to be tethered by these concerns at all, but unfortunately, these things come into
The picture,
because I do want to keep playing, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like a nasha, I want to keep being able to do what I want to do with my materials and
yeah,
make money sometimes.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I feel I don't want to think about it. Thankfully, somehow I'm making it work. Like,
Yeah. No,
I
I
don't
think
know.
that's a testament. I think it's a testament to your, I think your artistic, brilliance in showing the things in a way that's so effective. People connect with it. And the other thing which I've always struggled with when I'm talking to artists and design is that there is this need to be aesthetically perfect. There's a need to show something beautiful because nobody wants something ugly in their house if they want to buy it. And for some, it's a struggle because maybe their expression and thoughts are on the more darker side or on a side where they can't make the objects beautiful, and not because they can't, it's just the expression that they have. But I think all the work that I've seen of yours, like, they just naturally come out as things that you want. It's desirable, it's pretty, it's I think that maybe that is a process that helps, but otherwise I mean the fluidity is incredible.
Aesthetics is something that again comes naturally to me only because again I grew up with it. Like my grandmother, right? In fact, I was talking to someone, an artist friend of mine, and he was like, "We're so cursed, we have no problem." Talking about authenticity, right?
Yeah.
When I talk about problems, I also talk about. I mean, they are hidden. They're there, right? For example, "Not in My Name" was about religious violence, right? Again, a work that was not really shown or seen or talked about, right? But it is there, right? It's just how I make it. I don't really in a certain way. It is just
No,
who I
I think it's just, I think it's, and I know, just in the interest of completeness, are there images that you would like to share of some of the works? Because, there are so many themes, there is the migration aspect of your work. There is the female body aspect of the work. There is the tradition part of the work. Are there some examples you would like to show us of your work so that some of the audience can get a view of it? Because I've seen a lot. I would like other people to see it.
Oh no, I don't know if I'm so unprepared. See, I told you I'm unprofessional.
Oh no. I mean the Rorschach is I'll ask you a question on the Rorschach because I found that fascinating. I've never seen anything like that before. But
so let's not. I don't want to share images right now because I'm so unprepared for that. But like I said, the work, like if you see the timelines of my work, I mean, I'm hoping that if I, with the universe willing, if I live long enough, there will be a huge body of work with the timeline where you will see a direct correlation for what was happening in my life and what I was doing and why those works came. And it will not have any pretense about it,
Right.
There's no need to pretend. There's no need to construct work in order, drive the work in a certain way for commerce. This is something I think hopefully, like for example, right, my move to Seattle, started a series on Mount Rainier, right?
Okay.
Somebody might say, and then it had overlaps of like my concerns with natural fauna and flora because Seattle is so green and has so many trees. I started noticing it, and then I was like, listing Indian trees, right? It's not because like now environmental art is in fashion and I'm going to make like a series on it. It's also evolving of like what
the natural connection.
Right. Whether so it comes naturally into the work, right? And there's so many tiny overlaps, like I said, like the woodcuts, right? Woodcut was like I was talking to my friend in India, and he was like talking about his joy as a woodcutting, awardee and how he went about, and he was showing me his process. And then I'm looking at the cutting board. These works evolve naturally, right? And it comes from a true space, and I feel like even if they look mismatched and things, but there's a link to a person, which is me, right?
Right.
Which this is a human being with certain aspects, of certain qualities, certain experiences. This is my experience. This is what I'm thinking about, right? Like, for example, right, Celtic Queen also had like many overlapping things. This idea of rebellion, of women's intuitive framework. Right? How do you like still? Because, for example, I mean, my mom is like, women don't laugh so loud. Right? Kind of like the very, like decent girls don't laugh. That kind of thing. But look at me, like I laugh loud. The Celtic Queens were like that kind of rebellion. And then this idea of silence came into my work with the Shunya series, the mirror painting, because I felt like we are so, like I've seen so many images on Instagram. For example, there were these this series of painting a very famous artist made of these girls called Suicide Girls on Instagram. In fact, I was also, because if I really think like from Celtic Queens, I started looking at these girls on Instagram. Right, it's called Suicide Girls, and I was looking at them, and I was, oh, I should do something about it. Funnily, another very famous artist had already started the painting, and like people dissed him for taking the intellectual property of his. Anyway, that fell apart. But then I was looking at all these images on Instagram, and we're so like exposed to so much imagery, right? And then I needed silence, right? Then I was like, okay, now we need the silence. So that mirror painting is that silence, where the imagery is just, whatever happens in front of it, it's like absorbing the surroundings and the viewer, and it is just a mute spectator or a observer, of the viewer. And
when did the inkblots come into play? The whole Rorschach thing that you did.
That has been happening for forever. From 2016, like maybe around 15, also I was also playing ink drops and folding. Like I have 2 kids, and I must have played with them over for some time, and that might have made me
triggered it.
But I did start thinking about this idea of the viewer as part of the work, right? And in inkblot, that's what excited me, because that's like moving away from, I think I had my fill of my rebellion, right? I told you about the rebellion of craft, not wanting to change. I had my fill of it. That's when it happened, right? Because, you're having a tantrum and you've had enough of the tantrum, and now I'm like, okay, I'm done with that, and now I'm going to, so the Rorschach-like came that time when I was thinking about the viewer is also an author. Right. So this idea of like the viewer comes and imagines the image, and that is there, that is reflecting, the form is reflecting what is in their brain, right? So this thing. By the way, I also visited Aranmula Kannadi, the temple in Kerala, where the mirror is the god in the temple. And I also were like to see the process of how the mirror is made, and the alloy buffed, shine, and like if I think like, how does that influence painting? If you see, that's the same process in painting, right? It's actually buffing to a perfection. It's getting a reflective surface, right? So even these new works, which look somewhat like devoid of this earlier craftsmanship or on that, is all from Aranmula Kannadi. It's all very, very, very heavy craft tradition. Of metal
so there are these lines that are always connected to like the roots from where you started off throughout your career, everywhere. And I think it's like I listened to the whole conversation you'd had with Premjesh when I was there at the Art Centrics thing and listening to it. I never really connected this bit because the works that were shown are so contemporary in their nature that this conversation has been refreshing to learn that everything goes back to a certain root, regardless of the time period, the struggles, the life events. it's always been drawn to that. And all the mediums, has there ever been a favorite that this is where I think I express myself the best?
I mean, I think I'm drawn to sculptural processes. Even in my painting, it's sculptural. It's metal and it's polishing and buffing. And, if you see me paint, I don't share too much because everybody who comes to see these works are more wanting to learn how to remake it. It took me 4 years to figure out.
Don't hand it over like that. Yeah,
I'm like, I'm not going to teach you. In fact, I once told, sign up, like, put your name here and I'll do a workshop because I was getting irritated. I was like, no, but the reason I don't post my process videos is that, because I don't want to necessarily show right now. Maybe in 5 years I will.
But sculpture is what? Sculpture
is what I think is for now. Because even in painting, printmaking, all of this I'm seeing it as like a cultural process. I like material. I like patina. I just like metal a lot. And shamelessly, I like shiny things. Like, whatever, people think it's gaudy or whatever, but whatever. But it's who I am. I follow whatever I think truly, and I feel like it's the joy of being an artist. Because
please go ahead.
Why be an artist if you're going to make things, that other people like?
Segues nicely to my next question. What are we expecting next from Siri? What's on her mind? What's the next thing that we can expect? Is it more of the same, or is there the thought going in another direction?
I don't know. But one thing is, like I talked about the mediums, my new work that will be shown, hopefully I'll finish it by the art week, is I'm translating my drawing directly into sculpture. More about that, the videos will be posted hopefully soon. I didn't want to mold or make a form. I just wanted to draw and directly transform it into a sculpture. That's what we've done. I work with a foundry in Jaipur. We've kind of kept parts of how I work with other people. Right. Which is very important. The reason again I don't show their videos and stuff is I've been asked not to share because they have their own in competition already. That helps. That kind of stuff. So Jaipur has been another place where I go for the metal work with foundries, and I think the support, because metal can't be done alone. You can't make a 200 kg metal sculpture alone. So very thankful for these people who are collaborators and who are working with me.
When is this show coming on? When can we see
February 4th. February 4th, right? I don't know. India Art Fair, there'll be these 3 works.
Okay, around that time. Okay. 6th and 9th is, February, I think 6th to 9th is the art fair, but it's around that time.
Yeah. Look at me, I have a deadline in my brain that I just have to give work on.
No, but that sounds super exciting. The work sounds super exciting. I mean, we've talked about craft, we've talked about the evolution of your work, and I think one of the most interesting things that I read was also the fact that, you learned in 2 different educational systems, one in India, one when you did yourself outside. Does that, I mean, you've talked a little bit of these struggles of connecting back to your roots and while you did your interdisciplinary thing. What has that made you as an artist? There's these 2 educational mediums, what have you drawn from each of them in terms of becoming an artist?
So I think India has given me iconography, beauty, form, color, processing. This is what I learned from India, about art and how I grew up and stuff. And America, I think I've had some amazing professors. I learned, I must say, I was encouraged to be authentic, do not be afraid, right? Because I know I look confused, but I'm not, right? Because in my class, like all I learned is it's okay to do the way you think you want it to be and let people figure out what they want to do, right?
Right.
Like I'm doing what I want to do, right? How they want to put it in timeline or how the world reacts to it, their job. Like, I don't know. I've had some amazing professors. I think more than America and India, I'd rather talk about like the people who are influenced.
Yeah, yeah.
I had like an amazing professor called Muriel Magenta who gave me all the strength and encouragement, to pursue being a a showing artist, I must say, because I'm not an artist, whether I'm showing or not. But these are things I've learned, and But I did want to add one more thing, and I know we only have 2 minutes. My father was a filmmaker, also helped start a museum of women's craft in Bangalore.
Oh, brilliant.
And you guys you might want to see it someday. It's in the Women's College called NMTRE, and the museum is called Shashwati.
It's great.
Professor, the CN Mangala was the lady who had this idea, and my dad helped her. Though his name is not written anywhere, but I remember that he was part of that. And I went and saw the museum a couple of times. The reason for this museum was to show women's craft, which women did, whether they were considered professional artists or not. Like my aunt who made beads, they would make with beads, they would make a vase, they would make all these kind of craft works stored in that museum, and it's amazing. It makes me emotional to think, it's like all these women who have come before me, and I see myself as a thing of that. Another point to make, I'm sorry, Sandeep, I'm taking it.
No, please go.
So another thing is like as a women's craft, right? Usually this is what I saw. In some ways, I think because of my rebellious nature, I've fallen in love with metal. It somehow feels like a little masculine. There's a part of it like which is very masculine, so which I also enjoy. By the way, I also like weightlifting, which is also like kind of all connected. A very quick summary of
no, but this is what I'm saying. Craft more. We have a craft museum here in Bhubaneswar, so if you ever get a chance to come and visit, and I've always felt that the way we celebrate art and like high art and art in museums, in exhibitions, we don't celebrate craft as much as we should. It's unfortunately part of our tradition that the masters in our craft are not as celebrated as maybe somewhere in Japan. You can get like a pot that's been made by a 16th century master, and there'll be an attribution, there'll be provenance, there'll be all that good stuff. We have never really done that well, and I think the more we have in terms of collections, in terms of celebrations of something that is so part of who we are in our traditions, it would go a long way in reclaiming what craft is. It's not the other of art; it's art itself. I think that dissection and the point about women's crafts is also so important. Like I work with a lot of craft clusters here. The role of women in craft making has always been, I think, diminished. There's always the men's side of it. Like we did a recent project with bell metal. Again, metal. There's a lot of men are coming forward and talking about, but then the actual studio where the work's done, it's heavily supported by the women of the village, even though the hammering is made by the bell metal artisans. So there is a role, whether it is direct, whether it's indirect. I don't think that has been celebrated enough. So I think what your dad has done is quite important. We need more of these nuances to come out, which we, I guess, have never done. This has been a wonderful conversation. And before you sign off, I just want to ask you one question, which I always ask, given your diverse experience. What's the one piece of advice that you would like to give to young practicing artists who are out there, who are trying to make sense out of this gift that they have, this inclination that they have? What's the one thing you would say to them, given all your experiences?
Don't let the external world dictate what you do, because I feel like this is something I feel if I ever taught art in a college, this is what I'd like to say is, we become artists because there's something internal, something in us that is making you an artist, right? You know, stay true to that, regardless of the external pressures or whatever. Like if you have to make money from something else, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I understand that, right? Like I understand you need money to live, but staying true to, I think, the art itself that's coming out of you, because I feel like it's not even you who is doing it. It's something internal. It's like a firefly inside you, that is just, glowing, and let it glow, like let it be true, is what I would say is, that's how I feel, right?
Yeah, and not only that, I think the other point that you also made, which is lack of fear, which I think prevents us from experimenting and pushing ourselves.
I hope like the curators and the galleries and the collectors also start, being aware of the fact that people are multitudes. You're not like one person. Like you can't continuously paint horses. Maybe you might have thought of some other things in the meantime, right? Yeah. So where does that get expression? If you're not, what happened? Like, did you only think about flowers for 50 years?
Yeah.
Like, so let's be aware of that. Even the curators, like when you're criticizing the work changing, then you also have to think, what if there's a person who is going through all these things? This can be a simple practice, right? It takes a lot more guts to be like this weird.
Yeah, I think so. I would say absolutely yes. And we've come to the end of the time. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thanks everyone for joining in. Thanks so much, Siri, for taking the time out to do this. And this is recorded. It's going to show up on YouTube in a couple of days with subtitles and everything, so people can follow. And we'll be back next month with another artist. And happy holidays, and wish you a very happy New Year in advance, Siri. And hopefully I'll see your show in February 4th. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sandeep. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you.